So the Mott and Bailey strategy in Edinburgh now is, I would say, pretty well advanced. So if you're booking it out of Birmingham at 2 minutes past midnight back in November, with the clothes on your back, a painting, a piece of lucky shrapnel, a couple of filthy gym bags full of old clothes, which you give to homeless people on the way to Edinburgh, and then lose your wallet, and then have to build yourself up from cash, and I suppose, in fairness, access to GPay via a Chinese telephone at some points with intermittent service signal. But we've gone from there to sitting in Edinburgh, safe and sound, in the equivalent of a bunker, with the ability to construct, we're having constructed, basically a constituency office with lots of high quality technology to run things within physical distance of Edinburgh Castle, and of course access to the devolved parliaments. The amount that could potentially be done on the back of a third place position in that election, again coming up against Burnham, just fighting the election, right? Just having the audacity of the party to go and fight it, and doing so well in a place where nobody heard of us. You would knock on a door, and it was either, well, we don't know you exist, and they'd have to sort of look you up, and you couldn't have a conversation. The Reform guys, of course, political slogans are good because they give people things to repeat, and if people don't go along with the slogan, you pull the Hegelian face and sneer at them, and that passes for an argument. So you'd open the door and people say splitting the vote, splitting the vote, splitting the vote, pat on head type thing, and of course that's turned out to be total nonsense. There was never any particular appetite for them. Reform was a protest party, but obviously had to fill in the gaps policy-wise as they went. But now they can't do that because the party is full of such awful people like Dorries and Zahawi and Jenrick, and that kind of. I'm not going to insult Braverman, by the way. She has an incredible level of integrity, so I think she should join Restore. What the British have to think about is neo-colonialism. So word, of course, will make the left shriek. But if relationships are broken down, which of course they clearly have in many parts of the country, you need safe, fine, humane ways to separate people out who can't get along with together. And neo-colonialism might be a better idea. So someone like that could, again, run a place for people from cultures who are perhaps not up to British standards, but still entitled to dignified lives in a place that they would perhaps prefer based on their evolved admixture or whatever it may be, and something can be worked out via diplomatic efforts, and that's the sort of person you'd want to have on a Restore team, because they're going to be loyal to the country effectively, and of course intelligent adults who can have adult discussions around history and heritage and that kind of thing without it devolving into ignorant hostilities. But anyway, I digress maybe. But we're now setting things up, so we've got an office following the back of that. So as the lid is opened effectively onto the party by people in the country, discussion moves on to how best to communicate with us, and that of course is on Elon Musk's X, because it is the Thunderdome effectively. There are no rules, don't incite violence effectively, which is not hard, even though you skirt the line by joking about beheading anyone who ever went along with intersectionality. You can just talk to them and convince them it's a cult, but yes, I'm sorry for that one. But we've now got a proper team established who have spoken to each other a fair bit, and again, because of the nature of the party, a lot of the people are highly intelligent, and some of them are highly aggressive. So again, these are the people in sort of the army and the police force. You've spoken to all of those over the recent history. So if you can explain to them the current dynamics in Birmingham, again, the managing director sort of fleeing and hiding because she's got caught by me, attempting to run the city based on sort of communist magic beans in this kind of thing in John Cotton's case, and obviously by logical extension Nicky Brennan, and the potential for arrests when I say potential, I mean it's not exactly difficult to make a case for serious misconduct based on the way Birmingham City Council has been run, going along with people like Lowell's causing the guy to be assaulted outside of the pub. That we're not being told about weapons and things in local mosques, that kind of stuff. The total absence of security in a department where you have to have security because of it's a money department effectively. But anyone can get in and steal things, gain access to data, that kind of stuff. So we had no data security, that kind of stuff. Their vetting was totally non-existent. So Birmingham, is on a legal sense, is now effectively broken down. It's not governed by British law in any meaningful sense. So they're trying to, in my case, conjure up imaginary bureaucrats who are immune from prosecution by not existing, so that they can claim the police don't have to be called in. But because there's various women behaving badly behind laptops in the chain, you can obviously make the obvious point these people are attempting to pervert the course of justice. And fairly obvious to any copper with 3 brain cells that these women need to be promptly arrested. But at some point, the police will actually turn up. So they can't. The current position is they're abusing Birmingham Council technology and hiding behind it, and just trying to avoid police and auditors coming into an organisation called the Rent Service. As soon as Lowe's investigations team started asking questions, the police are going to turn up quite quickly, because there are a lot of very, very dangerous criminals running about that organisation, and we've got to clear them up by law. So again, under Nolan, got to be selfless. Not my housing stock. I don't make decisions on a personal level, but I couldn't make decisions on behalf of the tenants legally, because I was being prevented from doing so by potentially dangerous activists. So the legal liability at this point is going to be absolutely huge. So the John Cotton, and by extension his current managing director, were attempting to run the city on Crenshawism, so quote unquote anti-racism. Is effectively sort of Lysenkoist mental poison, which causes people to get attacked in a city where historically children have died because of the behaviour of the local authority and its callousness, and they're encouraging that. They were still encouraging that. I think it was last year or the year before, certainly after and around Southport, and you see that kind of stuff and realise that Birmingham's just become uncivilised, totally outside of British civilisation. And it's proved by the current position that these bureaucrats are just hiding and flatly refusing to fetch any kind of representative in and being interviewed under caution, because of course they are now evidence tampering. I mean, after a certain point in British legal proceedings, you've got to say something when it would be reasonable to do so, because you have to have a duty of candour in public bodies to explain when a serious wrongdoing. In my case, you've been doing it for certainly 6+ years at this point, internally via the office of the city solicitor, banging stuff into their email box, trying to have meetings, all kinds of stuff for years and years and years. We were catching various activists behind laptops, getting their antics into the press. But because it involved John Cotton and various members of the Labour group and departing chief executive managing directors, the commissioners then refused to reply, right? So Max Corler wouldn't speak to us in compliance. So at some point it became clear that the law and order had just gone. So Andrew Mitchell was asking for more commissioners' powers, but the commissioners' powers would then lead to the same conclusion, that we hadn't got sufficient strength to hold the city in terms of any kind of disruption, which again, having had to flee from race riots as part of doing the job, I would certainly agree with. But the problem now threatens to spread out to the rest of the country, and of course lots of these people are invaders, and we can't tell who's friendly and who's not at this point. So again, the next general election, I doubt it's going to last 2029, because the threat is now military after all the recent murders. So Burnham can hang on as long as he likes, but if you're in his constituency, Burnham's got to deal with this. But that would of course involve dealing with the intersectionalist left in his party, which he can't do. He would have to destroy Labour to do it. So it's a poison chalice for Burnham. But yes, again after the election, regardless, we'll take 7% and a bunker with a sword.